Liftoff.
We're back
Again.
Have we? Right. How many are uploaded? How far behind is this one? Because this is not only a big jump from when we last did a recording, but it's potentially forever since we actually uploaded anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Do we just call those the lost files? Are they just gone?
Yeah, that's like...
We're just starting afresh?
This episode is called John and Aidan Saved the Show.
Okay.
Because I think the show's been in somewhat peril for a while.
Yes. I'm single now, so I've got a lot more free time.
And we can, go back to talking shit on the internet.
Yeah. Which is arguably the important thing. So I think, well, in fact, let's just be honest. What prompted this? I
think it was probably the fact that Spider-Man came out and we both just wanted to gush about how great it is for a while.
It's pretty much what this is going to be about. We'll probably talk. We'll definitely end up on other topics.
I'm sure we'll dip in and out of stuff as appropriate. I mean, we've already just talking to each other before we started recording.
Yeah,
covered a wide range of things.
We've already discussed a lot just in the setup.
Maybe burnt ourselves out.
Yeah. Or maybe we're done. Maybe this is it. Maybe the podcast is over.
That Loki joke. That's me peaking for the evening.
Yeah.
It's all downhill from here.
Exactly. So, let's talk about it.
Okay, so I was not very hyped really for this game. I've been a massive fan of a few Spider-Man games in the past, but generally
Spider-Man games I think hold a rare spot in well, I guess obviously it's originally comic, but like they were also big films. It's a rare I mean that's the thing. There's been Spider-Man games before the movies were mainstream, because I remember having one on PS1.
I was going to say, I think the earliest memory of playing a Spider-Man game I have is on the Sega Mega Drive, where it was 2D cartoon graphics, and you had one button to punch, one button to throw web at a guy.
Well, the one I remember, it was just so cool. It really, it had some great visuals. So, it was the one where the whole city had been,
the gas
toxic
on the
gas,
floor. Yeah,
which was, their way of getting around the draw distance limit. It's like Silent Hill 2 style. But, it's also a plot device. And it was symbiote based, and there was all these slimes and stuff, and I remember the webbing, you get there was a mode where you end up with orange fire webbing and stuff.
Oh yeah, the webbing powers and the suit powers and stuff. Not as cool as they are in this game, but it was a progenitor of mechanically how those things would work.
But it's a great foundation to start with, and then obviously you had Spider-Man was basically the first really popular. I would say it's probably the first really popular superhero movie. I mean, I guess maybe the Batman films.
Yeah, but
this was
I think what we consider modern superhero movies definitely started with
Batman. Yeah.
Well,
Spider-Man. Sorry. Yeah.
With that Raimi trilogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you had Daredevil and all sorts of Blade,
X-Men and stuff as well. I think was kind of took a lot of it really kicked off the modern superhero trend.
I think X-Men 1 might have been before the first Spider-Man movie, but it definitely, when those films came back and franchised themselves, that Raimi model was what they were using.
And they were really good. I enjoyed those so much as a kid. Because I remember, I really was in, I was really into Spider-Man, and then, suddenly it felt like that film just came out, out of nowhere. I mean, it's obviously just every kid's into Spider-Man, and they happened to be a film when I was a kid. But I remember being so excited about the film. I loved it. Really enjoyed it, and then the game that came out after that was really the game of the movie was so good, it's so rare. Things like Avengers should be such a solid good gaming franchise. You've got different characters to switch between. They've got awesome powers. If God of War's taught me anything, it's that Thor's hammer mechanic has been missing from games since they were invented.
As soon as I played that game and I realized that you could call the hammer back to you and control it to deal with crowds that way, I was like, man, Marvel, you have been fucking sleeping on these mechanics. And really going back to that first Mega Drive Spider-Man game, it feels for the most part there's a period of my life where all of the gaming consoles I had a Spider-Man game attached to them. The Mega Drive had that game, Spider-Man PS1, which you referenced there, and then the Raimi movie games on PS2.
Yeah.
And then you get to PS3, and it felt like Spider-Man just wasn't really there.
And that's because, of course, if you look at them in the movies, they'd also taken a massive dive, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think game...
no one was buying the Amazing Spider-Man game.
I remember seeing memes of it, and it just looked like the worst thing in the world.
Grands who go and buy a game for their, grandson.
Oh, he likes Spider-Man. He'll enjoy this.
Oh, he's into his comic books. I'll buy him this. I don't know why. That seemed like it was an impersonation of someone and not a Nan. It was like...
No, it's one of my D&D characters.
It
will be now if it isn't already.
Who isn't, right? So, yeah, no one was buying that. You're right, it was missing from the previous gen stuff. And the current gen has, it's been around for a while and we haven't had it. Well,
I think, like, the thing that happened when the PlayStation 3 generation kind of came in was that Batman was the coolest thing in the world. You had those Nolan movies, Arkham, like so many good Batman things coming out, and now... And
it's before they ruined the DC...
Well, this is the thing, like now it's reversed again. DC's crap, Marvel's awesome. Spider-Man's like back in business in the MCU.
Before we do that, have you heard the news today that Henry Cavill...
What's that?
Well, there's two Henry Cavill news, of course, which is that he's playing every character in the Witcher show. But other than that, he's quit as Superman.
Really?
Yeah. And the best thing, like, and I haven't read the article, so this is one of those things where it's like, I don't know where this has come from. Have a guess who has been pegged to replace him as Superman. I'll give you a help. He's not white.
Idris Elba.
No.
Will Smith.
No.
Oh, he's already in the.
I'll give you a clue.
Donald Glover.
This actor is already a character, or was a character in the Marvel universe.
Samuel L. Jackson.
No.
The guy who played Eric Killmonger.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is pegged to be the new Spider.
Is that legit?
I don't, like I said, I haven't read the article.
Sorry,
like,
legit as in that's the one,
like,
that's the rumor.
There is IGN. That is what they're running as the follow up story is like that he's pegged to be. There are rumors he'll be replacing.
Because it wasn't enough to have him be like in the Fantastic Four, being Black Panther. Yeah. Like he has to be in Superman as well. Like the problem I have with Hollywood, right? Like you go into
the problem.
Yeah, just
the one.
Just the one. Like you go into Infinity War was a great movie, right?
Yeah.
But it just feels like, who's the new character that they meet? Oh, it's a dwarf played by the guy
Lannisters.
The guy from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And it's like, who's the new villain that we meet? Oh, it's a guy who was also in Star Wars as like the same exact snivelling evil character.
Which guy are we talking about? The floaty magician dude.
Who's like, you have been burdened with great purpose.
Yeah.
Domhnall Gleeson, who is the same character in Star Wars. And it just feels like... Or like
someone's flavor of the month. Is that what you're basically saying?
It's just like you have the same three sort of franchises, or these Venn diagrams of like I don't know. It all just feels a bit like the same people doing the same people doing the same stuff, but just in different combinations.
Yeah, but,
like and then you go to so that guy who was also in Star Wars, Domhnall Gleeson. And then you have like the Star Wars Solo movie comes out that has Emilia Clarke in it, who was also in Game of Thrones that guy was in, and it's just like.
But isn't that just there are stars and they get hired in big films? Like I think that's basically it, and they do to an extent get typecast. So if they've shown acting chops in that area, if they're good at stunts, for example, they'll be Chris Pratt is like he's in everything. It's insane. But like it's because he's he had a hit with like Jurassic World, and like he's clearly really good at Star Wars. So. It's just he's like a lead action man.
Yeah, I think that's like the problem with it. I guess is that someone gets established, someone has a good performance of doing something, and then someone goes, "Oh, I like that."
Liam Neeson.
Well, someone has a breakaway performance, and then they get typecast and have to do that kind of performance again. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So anyway, I just thought while we were on the subject of DC movies, I thought, you know what? I'll just throw out bit of current breaking news.
Yeah, this is a news show now. Fuck it, why not?
News.
So in terms of like Spider-Man, like he sort of like fell off as a relevant character in gaming. Yeah. That kind of went on to Batman, and then now it's kind of come back, and we're in a position where Spider-Man is cool again.
Spider-Man really wasn't even by Spider-Man 3, like that ruins him for.
I love Spider-Man 3.
I've still not seen it, so I can't comment on it.
I'm not gonna.
What's been showing up on my YouTube recommended is a bunch of clips from Spider-Man, So I've been watching the odd bit, both from the films I've seen, 1, 2, and like the third one. Like it looks pretty. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, when you're used to today's modern standards, it's crazy because I'd never thought I'd be saying about this about a 2000 film, right? Because at the time you just think, yeah, this is like the peak, right? Like, I mean, CGI is obviously going to be a bit off, but even just like how they directed fight scenes, they're just like obvious cuts. It's like you know, I don't know. I watched the fight scene between Harry and him, and it's bad. It's just bad. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, Tobey Maguire and
James Franco.
Yeah, crazy guy is like they're just not good action actors at all.
No, but like
there is the vampire style, like.
But there is still a lot of great like character moments and stuff in the background of those movies, and in the talking scenes. They still carry that weight.
It's solid writing, and like a solid like.
I mean, I'm not going to say Spider-Man 3 is solid writing as much as I love it. I mean, it's still got problems.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is like, yeah, they were great, cool films. But isn't that the truth though? Like, you can have a film that doesn't necessarily deliver visually. Like, it helps, but you know, the films that get picked up for bad CGI are weak elsewhere, and it's like it's a thing to tack on, right?
I think it's like,
this is gonna sound like a terrible example. It's like fat people. Right, wait for where I'm going. If they're really if they're good people, I don't care if people are fat or not. Like, this sounds awful. I don't care if people are fat or not. But if someone's a bad person, like, so it sounds like a complete scumbag. If they're also fat, I'll make fun of them for it. Like, what I mean is, you can have bad CGI in a film, but if it's good at its core, I don't mind. But if it's a bad movie and you've got bad CGI, I'll pick you up on it.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, do
you not agree with the sentiment?
Yeah, I do. I agree with the sentiment.
I feel like
it's just nice that for once it wasn't me that said the thing.
Oh man, I realised if we release this, I can't be a politician now.
Yeah,
like, that'll just get put up. I'm like fat shaming.
But again, though, I
want to make it clear that it's not being fat that's the problem, because I have fat friends.
If someone's Jewish,
I have black friends. Okay.
I mean, if someone's black but at the core they're not a good person, then you use that against them, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, yes, no, you don't.
Spider-Man is a good game.
Oh man. Anyway, back on track.
But the thing
I just thought it was a funny reference.
It's very easy to judge those movies as superhero films in the current context of superhero films being so prevalent and being so popular.
Yes.
But at the time, like,
we only
got here because of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And when I purchased Spider-Man,
and we only got Spider-Man: Homecoming because of how bad the Amazing Spider-Man was.
Exactly, like it all flows into each other.
It's very nice.
And that's the thing. Like, I had problems with Spider-Man: Homecoming. I think it's a good movie, but I don't think it's perfect. But compared to the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, like they got the essence of Spider-Man as a character.
I'm gonna go out there and say it's my favorite Spider-Man film.
Like,
well, I appreciate Spider-Man like 1.
What about Infinity War?
Wait, it's my favorite Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man in the title.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
but I think Infinity War counts as a Spider-Man film.
Well, and Civil War, right? Like, he was a big role in that too.
Yeah.
You know, Civil War I really loved. In fact, I'll go as far as to say is like Civil War was it's probably my second favorite Marvel film after maybe Infinity War. Man, I love the Avengers 1. But Civil War, I think is like my favourite, like almost certainly. I've watched it the most and I really solidly enjoyed it. Anyway, getting off topic, Spider-Man
does anything a spider.
Yeah, anything Tom Holland can. He in fact, yeah. Like, I was watching a thing of like where the Amazing Spider-Man were, like it was some like comparison video, and they weren't focusing on. They were focusing on one scene. It's like the scene where they compared the scene where. The final scene from Amazing Spider-Man 2, where he fights the Rhino.
Yep.
And then the scene from...
The one that was just in the movie so they could use it in the trailer and make it seem like the Rhino was actually a thing.
And he then also... He was comparing it to the scene where he stops the train.
That is an amazing scene.
And he gets passed back over the people. And it just... But it also like touched on... It basically... Peter Parker's just a terrible human. Like in Amazing Spider-Man,
yeah, totally.
Like, because he's like, there's a bit where he steals that guy's like ID, gets him kicked out of Oscorp, and just smiles to himself. I'm like, you sociopath! Like, and
the Uncle Ben thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all know what happened with Uncle Ben, how that story originally goes down. It's Spider-Man
turned into rice. It's pretty rough.
Spider-Man has a chance to stop the guy, but because he's angry at the dude that the criminal just robbed, he lets him go, and that results in Uncle Ben dying.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
They retconned that in Spider-Man 3, which I think a lot of people had a problem with.
Yeah.
But in Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker goes to a shop to buy some chocolate milk, and he doesn't have enough money. So the cashier says to him, "I'm not going to sell you this." And Peter Parker's like, "Come on, man, just let me have it." And then the cashier's like, he becomes a 2D asshole villain guy and goes, "Where are you gonna cry?" Or something like that.
Yeah.
And then someone comes in to rob that shop, and Peter Parker's like, should I become Spider-Man? Nah, fuck it. And then it's that criminal that goes on to kill Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
So it's like he was completely. You can kind of understand why Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker would let the criminal go.
Yeah.
Because he had just been scammed out of money that legitimately should have been him, and that guy, while still being a 2D sort of asshole, had wronged him.
Yeah.
The cashier hadn't wronged him.
Yeah.
Peter Parker didn't have enough money for the product.
And and he completely a terrible thing happened to this. Yeah. Yeah, and also I remember watching that film. It felt way too soon to have a reboot of Spider-Man. I know it's still a big jump, but it felt way too soon. So it just felt like I was going through the motions as well. Like every bit of that film, I was like, all right, here's the bit where Uncle Ben dies. And I just didn't care. And I thought it wasn't as well done as the Spider-Man one.
Yeah, and like for all of those original like Raimi films having their faults and stuff, like a lot of those things weren't a problem in these new movies, but things that those movies had got right, these movies got wrong. It was like they'd improved in some areas, but in every area where it had been good before, it was now bad.
Well, and I feel like that's where Marvel made just a great decision. And obviously, it's because they're like 9 years into their timeline that they could do this. But like just not telling his origin story, it's like they've just got to the point now where they just expect people to know it, and it doesn't almost matter, right? So we've seen Spider-Man's origin story. In this, it's like you kind of get the origin story of like where he becomes like because until Stark comes along in this, he's still webbing around in his homemade suit, right? Just being like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and then Stark elevates him, brings him into the Civil War just like a backup, and he's like, no, you go back to being friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's a great place for Homecoming to start because he's kind of got this like touch of greatness, but he's still got a lot to prove. And it's just a great arc for him to go on. But he's already in the place where you know Peter Parker. Theories that sorry to interrupt you, but theories that Tony Stark is gonna die. Yeah. And like that's gonna give a sense of paternal loss to Peter Parker that hasn't been present in the films up until now. Well, that's it. Like using what you got, and you know, because it'd actually be kind of you're right. If they're gonna have that, because let's face it, like you know, Iron Man's not gonna have another standalone movie. He's been in them all for a while now, and you know Robert Downey Jr. is not getting any younger. So because he was due to like stop after 3. I swear that's what I read. Like he was like, oh,
there were rumors that he was going to wind down. Like the whole thing, you know, at the end of Age of Ultron, where they were showing like the new Avengers and all of these people in that ending montage. I sort of took that as like, well,
like this is that baton passing.
Yeah.
But I think.
But then he was back in Civil War.
But I think that was only because of like a rewrite, right? So he wasn't due to be in it, and like they rewrote, and I think he went. You know, he loved playing the character so much. He was like, yeah, put me in it, kind of thing. Because I think that's the other thing. Like, we've definitely spoken about this before. Let's not get onto that. What I was going to say about like how you have you've had the origin story, like we've done that to death. Tying it back to the game that we're really building up to. That is one of the things I really enjoy about this Spider-Man is that it's so far on from his origin. He's been Spider-Man for ages.
And kind of where it sort of dawns similarities to the sort of the current film universe is like, you know, in a lot of ways, the Uncle Ben stuff, we all know it. So in a lot of ways, less is more. Like you go to Aunt May's office and you can press triangle to examine some of her items and stuff. And then if you press triangle on the Uncle Ben picture, he just says "miss you."
Yeah,
2 words.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're like, you know, there's character beats on him. It makes sense that you know, obviously his parents, you know, passing, and you know, Uncle Ben, they were important parts of his life, so they still come up. So when he's having those sentimental moments with May, it's brought up because and especially when, now I'm just going to put it out there, I'm only like 60% of the way through the game, but like Miles, when he's like, I've only got like a little bit into that, But like, I really liked how it's kind of like that comes back up again, where it's like I used to be in that bad place. So that's a really nice way of just like dropping it in there. If you really, for some crazy reason, I'm not familiar with Spider-Man's like origin story, there's enough in there that you can get the idea of it. Right?
Yeah.
And you know, Aunt May's the only person he's got left in the world, kind of thing. Like by this point, also saying it after like him and MJ broke up, like. It's cool. Like I'm like it just feels like it's still like a fresh take on a very it feels like Spider-Man, but it feels like him in a situation that you wouldn't really have seen him in unless you'd like read the comics basically.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of freshness about the story direction because again like the Spider-Man games that sort of followed the movie ones were all a bit focused on like Venom and Carnage and
they also like they were weirdly like very comic booky because you had like the multiverse game
way to the whatever that's called
whatever
Spider-Man 2019
Spider-Man Dimensions or something,
that's it
and
Web of Shadows,
so you got all these like, and that's like this is a nice balance because that's like very high comic book stuff. That's
and those games were basically just the plot of them basically boils down to Spider-Man fighting a bunch of Spider-Man villains one after the other. In this, there's like one or two villains.
I like the pacing. Like you start off with the boss battle, like you get introduced. Like Fisk is like your first person you come up against, and then there is like a bit of a lull. Like you know, I'm only at the point where I've had a couple of encounters with anyone else who's remotely high power.
I mean, I think in terms of story stuff and plot, like where I'm at now, I've just played my first instance of so you see Miles in that cutscene after the helicopter, and then there's a little while later when you play as him.
Oh, I haven't. Oh yeah, like the incident.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. It's raining in my New York, and I'm because everything bad has happened.
Okay, I think I got a little bit further on then.
Yeah, I mean, I got to the point where it started raining, and I was like, if I advance the story, then the weather's going to change.
Lose the rain.
And I want to do photography.
This is actually really good. This is actually a really good, like, interesting point about it's rare to get so open world games usually sacrifice single player stuff by having it be like, you know, when you're in the open world, there's a day-night cycle, right?
Yeah. This
game just totally forgoes a day-night cycle. I have no doubt they can totally do it. Like, they'll have built a dynamic day-night cycle in it.
Well, have you had it where you start a side mission and then the day and night changes?
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
So it's weird because this is a weird mix between open world but also a crafted experience. Because that's all, like, obviously they kind of tend to go against each other because it's like open world generally sacrifices like tailored experience for like if you're just going around the open world, it's still immersive. Whereas it's like
I heard a really great analogy where you could have a body of water that's a mile wide and an inch deep, and then you could have like the Marianas Trench, which is no space at all, but it's
very deep. Yeah, no, exactly. But this game, it's kind of an interesting mix because the story still feels really crafted. Like you say, like obviously they've set that mood because it's where you are in the story. It's the mood of the story. And if you continue to do the open world stuff, because they're in between missions, and missions are pretty short. But I just thought it was interesting that like the open world just hangs in that like
in
moment
that
of
frozen
story.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like, because often that's quite weird that like you'll go and you'll have like 5 days that pass and you go back to the story and it's like just like picks up where it left off.
It's like, Peter, I need you to come and meet me at my lab.
Yeah.
And a week goes by in game and he's still just standing there.
Hey Peter, you know, you're late. But in this, you're kind of stuck in the mood. Like it never feels like you drop out the story, which I like.
Yeah, and even though like the reason you're probably a bit further than me in the story is because I've just been having hours and hours where I'm running on walls, swinging, web zipping, doing all sorts of stuff. Like, and I'm at the point now where I'm running out of stuff to do in the open world. So
I'm the same, man. I'm like really sad. I look at the map and the amount of greyed out icons is making me really down. But there's apparently New Game Plus coming soon, so
totally, yeah. I've been
I'm pumped.
Yeah, I've been creeping on the Reddit a little bit and keeping up with that stuff. But so this game, where it comes out of, like Insomniac, you were saying before we started recording, have always had like these creative weapons and stuff, like Ratchet and Clank Resistance. That was always the best.
Ratchet and Clank had like still probably one of my favorite weapon systems, and then New Game Plus really built on that. But yeah, like the idea that you have like something you can improve it, and you've got a lot of like, it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's not like Dota where the amount of heroes is just it's mental. Whereas this, it's manageable, but there's options, which is cool.
And in terms of like open world games, I'd say I haven't had this much fun traversing and exploring an open world since The Legend of Zelda. But to go back to that thing about depth and also like the story and the missions having a lot of depth and cinematic qualities to them, I felt like the story side of that game, the Breath of the Wild, the last open world game that I enjoyed this much, it didn't have that aspect as much. Like the story and everything felt very reduced from what a normal Zelda game would be.
Even like take Metal Gear Solid 5, right? That was like you like Metal Gear used to be like a super intense single player experience, and they did sacrifice that for having open world different approaches. Like you had the core points and you had the over the top Kojima moments, but it was very much like
you weren't putting your controller down for very long.
Yeah.
Which was something that really disappointed me. I really want, because that's the thing. It's like, again, I don't want to get onto a massive thing about Metal Gear Solid 5 because I'll talk for 3 hours. Yeah. But it felt like almost chucking the baby out with the bathwater. Like you make it more about the open world, and then you have to take the story stuff out to accommodate that.
Yeah.
Whereas this feels like it has a very good balance between cutscenes, cinematic story.
Yeah.
You got the J. Jonah Jameson stuff, which is always giving you a context of like the world.
I'm very impressed with their. So they've done that and the fake Twitter.
Fake Twitter, well. Yeah.
So it's like there's a lot. I'm very surprised at the depth they managed to fit into such a game, because like they've just achieved a lot, I think, and I think that's just what's really impressed me was, you know, sometimes you get a game where it's like it really stands out on one feature, right? Like it might be an amazing open world map, it's so good, but like the controls are clunky, right? Or like you'll get you'll have a really good story, but like graphically it'll be bad,
and like Metal Gear Solid 5, the gameplay was awesome, better than it's ever been, but the story suffered. Zelda. Same thing, right?
Exactly. Or you'll like lack side stuff to do. That's like another big thing that's dropped out of games, and I feel like recently single player has kind of made a bit of a return with some more old school like stuff. So like like God of War. One of the things that I just like got so attracted to that game for was there was like it just gave me an incentive to like poke my head around that corner, like look at that, like, you know, there's that passage I haven't done yet, like. That was very single player focused, but it still felt big because there was all these little things to find, and if I wanted to, I could read and examine stuff and feel more connected to the world. And in this, that really like is done through like the collectibles,
backpacks.
They're so nice. Like I have to say, like you don't have to work very hard for them. Like you just
that you like
Assassin's Creed Tower it, and then like
occasionally it'll be like, where exactly do I... Okay, I know where the backpack is, but how do I approach this? And
there's been a couple where they put
it takes a couple of seconds of like
especially some of the more vertical ones where it's like halfway up a building, like in an
alcove or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
But you know, it's not. But the reward is nice, like being able to look at those. I just so looked forward to finding out what item I just found in this backpack and what little part of the world you suddenly see, because that's the thing. Like you really got. They did a good job of showing that he's been
Spider-Man for a while,
because he's like, this is how I improved my glasses. Like he took a mysterious helmet.
This is when I fought the Vulture and he did a sonar attack on me. Like those things are, a lot of those things are also references to previous Spider-Man games as well. So it's like it brings the fans into that, because we remember doing that stuff as well.
I think you really hit on it when you said earlier that it's like those early games, like they had a lot of what is in this. So this is what this game's done really well, is it's taken like some of the stuff you expect from Spider-Man and just polished it all to like a really fine finish, like swinging. Like, you know, I was looking back at some of the comparisons of like the web swinging over the years, and this is very similar. Like, you know, sort of PS2 era, you had games where it would actually draw the web to a building and do it based on like where the web went. That's not new, but they've really refined this in terms of like building a speed, and I love mechanics where it's like it's easy to do. Like my sister was like back from uni, and I showed her it because she used to play the old Spider-Man game, so I thought she'd be interested in it. She's I don't want to play it. I was like, just have a go at swinging around. Loved it. Like, and it's easy to like pick up, but to perfect, it's like, and it's so rewarding. Like when I had like a bit of frustration at the start because I was like, I'm not as cool as I wanted to be. And then like by the time you get used to it, like when you're at the point where like you'll come in low and then you'll like vault over a building, like there's those little mechanics they've done that just make it so enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, like the quick recoveries and the thing where you can web grapple to points and then press X for the perfect timing to get more momentum.
Exactly.
Like it there's a really good flow to it, a really great kineticism that when you're doing it right, you do get immersed and go, oh, I could be fucking Spider-Man.
I think the best the best mechanics are ones where it's like, so it's 2 buttons and you can web swing, right? 3 buttons if you count L2. So it's like, so 3 buttons. That is as like pretty much as simple as it can get, and then but the way you combine that and the timing and like how you like use the environment is where your the skill emerges from it. And
have you unlocked or experienced the aerial tricks yet?
Yes. So after you told me to buy that, my next skill point went straight on that. I love it. It's really good.
Like getting the combos, and, like so much now.
Trying to fit how many like you can do. Like triple, I think is the most you can do, and then you can
spin
like
out and
change to another trick. And that's actually a good segue onto upgradables. So we mentioned it before. I love a skill tree, but I also like upgradable. Like this just has I think it just has so much that I enjoy. Like it's got collectibles, but the upgradables it's such a great combination. You've got passive stuff you can upgrade. You've got visuals you can upgrade, but they're not they unlock the power, the suits. So like you get the suits and you get the suit power, but they don't. You can then mix and match. That's nice. You got a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, there's some suits I'm just like, that's badass, but that skill sucks.
Yeah, totally. Like I and similarly, like I don't really like the way that the Spider-Man punk looks.
Yeah.
But I do really like his special move.
The Qatar, right?
So yeah,
I haven't actually unlocked it yet. I just
so good, mate. I think what you do is you activate it and then you just massive like spams on the pause button to get photo mode open, so you can take loads of like intricate guitar shots.
Yeah,
it's so good. But in terms of, I have mixed feelings about skill trees and upgrade things generally.
Yeah,
I've been piecing what I'm about to say together for a while now, and maybe this is the forum to do it. So it feels like you have old games, like old school games, like Mario, for example. Mario might run into, through the course of the game, he might run into items that change the way he plays.
Yes.
But generally, the skill set that Mario has at the start is the same at the end.
Yes.
And it feels like a lot of the times with skill trees and stuff, they design the game around what all the abilities you're going to have, and they go, okay, we'll restrict them on a skill tree so that let's say you design your game around your character flying. Mm-hmm. We'll go, okay, well, if we don't give them the ability to fly until 5 hours into the game, it makes it longer, and it means that they can explore the on-foot areas,
and then you get a high,
and so it sort of feels like a lot of the time skill trees are just sort of used arbitrarily to restrict what you're able to do.
Yeah.
With this game, though, generally speaking, all of the abilities you have, minus gadgets and stuff and specific combo things, but like the ability to web zip, the ability to swing, to point grapple, all of those things you can do at the start, you just enhance them.
You could still definitely with the exception of on the subject of the collectibles, you got the bags, the research. There's so much to do around the city. The only thing I found where I've been locked behind a wall where I needed power was the research labs. So some research labs require you to have a ability unlocked, right? That's the only thing hidden behind that skill tree wall.
Okay, interesting.
But it's like there's like 2 or 3. So for example, there's one called ground strike, right? Yeah. And there's a research lab where you're required to ground strike in order to like use it as sonar under the ground. So if you don't have it, you can't do that research lab. But but the other thing as well is the skill tree. A, it's basically not needed, and B, like all of the stuff is just really enhancements. Like it's not like there's a
being able to air zip twice doesn't
exactly. And it's like, oh, this thing does more splash damage now, or you can
yank someone's gun away and then throw it back at them.
Exactly. So it's actually a nice progression, but it's not stopping you from getting anywhere in the game. Like you can get like if the first thing you want to do is go to the Empire State Building, and climb to the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what I like. So it's not restrictive, but it's there to like it does it. You still want to feel like you're progressing, and that's difficult in an open world game. So it's nice that and also that's a great thing as well. Those collectibles directly they are your currency to enhance gadgets and enhance suits and enhanced, actually the skill points are like XP based, but
but you need all of the tokens to be able to upgrade yourself efficiently, so it gives you incentives to do all of the different stuff.
So they've just done a really good job of I think just every area is just fantastically polished. There's not really much that I have a complaint with. I mean,
I have a couple of things, but I'll let you finish the thought and then we'll get into that.
Well, I was just saying, I think there's a few frustrations I've had, like while the controls are really good, I think that there are still some things where, because it does a lot of, the way it works is a lot of interpretation of what it thinks you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's always frustrating. It's like sometimes where it's like, oh yeah, I just want to stop now at this point, and you'll massively overshoot where you were going, and it's like, oh, for God's sake, especially when you're tired, I'm like, I don't need that. But whatever, it's not too bad. And I think some of the foreshadowing's a bit annoying. I don't know, but then again, I think it is still kind of a kid's game, plot wise.
Yeah, I mean, most of my criticisms are more on the game side of things than the story.
Yeah.
Although what I will say about the story is that I enjoy stealth mechanics if they're there, but to force you to do them if they're going to be light and underdeveloped is annoying. Yeah. I don't have a problem playing as MJ because I'm a misogynist, but if I play a game where there's really limited stealth mechanics and the rest of the game has loads of mechanics, it just feels like you're being funneled. And to be honest, when they do it with stealth, I just wish I was playing Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And if a game makes me think that I'd much rather be playing Metal Gear Solid, then it isn't doing its job properly.
I think a good example of what we were talking about though, so where I don't mind stealth in the game is when it's just completely optional, right?
Yeah.
So in this
Do
game,
you want to fuck this base up with fists or with sneaky webs?
Completely an option. There's areas I should be quiet, but if you don't, it's you just got to fight in your hands. But there are areas where you're forced to play as other characters, and I think it's not even just they are underdeveloped, in the sense it's just not. It's like there'll be two ways to go, and you knock a bit over, and he walks that way, and you walk past him, right? It's not that tense, and it's not that in depth. But I think the main thing is you're so enabled as Spider-Man, you're so powerful that it's just frustrating. You've learned all this. I'm great. How long is this going to take? I'd honestly just rather I'm playing as Spider-Man, and when MJ tells me a story, fine, do a flashback. I don't have a problem with that. Just show me what she did.
Yeah, just have it all be cutscenes.
Yeah, or even a bit of quick time event. I don't really care about that. I'll do it.
But but to make these very linear, scripted stealth things when the rest of the game feels very open and dynamic.
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel more connected to the character. I think that's what they might say is it lets you see through their eyes. I'm doesn't put me. I mean, but
I don't feel in danger when I play as MJ or Miles though. I feel like I'm on a scripted, railroaded sequence, and it's all story focused. The interactivity to me doesn't add anything.
No, exactly. So yes, no, I agree with you there, massively actually.
In terms of
the bit I liked about MJ's thing wasn't even it annoys me when you're forced to do the stealth stuff. The bit where she's asking you can explore. The bit where you're in the museum and you go explore the stuff. I don't mind that. I found it interesting, reading up what she was doing and having the control to dive into it more if I wanted to.
Yeah, I actually didn't hate being in the art gallery until it turned into a stealth level.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when when I started to not enjoy it. Yeah. Which is probably the point where they went, okay, let's throw something in to make this fun for people.
The other stealth bit, the stealth isn't the strongest part of the game, but I like that it's an option, and it's just quite fun, because it's Spider-Man, so. Perch takedowns are just they're just so well animated. I love the whole and it's just getting wrapped up in the web, and then you bang their heads against the poles.
Leaves a cocoon looking guy suspended. Who doesn't love that?
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a bit of fun
versus AI repetitive AI going pretending to be on the phone and going yep, okay, yep, and then turning round and looking one way and going right, yep, okay, sure, turning back
and they've also made it super lenient, and it's you know what, they're we haven't got great stealth mechanics in this game, but if you want to do it, it's a bit of fun. And so they put in this it'll tell you when it's safe to do something or not, and it dumbs it down. It is very simplistic, but it's at least they've just because I hate games where they haven't spent time programming the AI with proper detection, and there's nothing worse than when it's you can see no reason why you were detected, right? Mm-hmm. I hate that. It's so frustrating. Whereas at least with this game, it's just if you do anything to these guys now, you'll be causing an alarm.
It's like Far Cry 1. You go and get into a fight with people and then run into the jungle, and they just know where you are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's incredibly frustrating. So this game, dumb stealth. Don't play this if you're into like if you were looking for Metal Gear Solid 5. Don't play this game.
Well, actually, I would say that in terms of like what I enjoy about Metal Gear Solid 5, the different options and choices, like moment to moment, like when there's a guard in between you and your destination in Metal Gear, you have so many choices of what you can do. In Spider-Man, when you're brawling it out with people, it's like I could just stand here and dodge all day. Dude, I could web them up.
The combat's so fun, right? Like I was really having fun, and this is where the skill tree is good actually. Like because I think the other reason for skill trees that like didn't mention is also as a training mechanic. Because if you dumped, so you might want to by the end of the game, because if you have the same skill set all the way through, like it's fine on a single player linear game because they can design the levels to give you more and more challenge, but open world that's really hard to do because it's like, well, you might come across these guys. So what they do is they make it so I think what the skill tree in this allows you to do is feel comfortable with the initial combat, the basics, and then add slowly to it. And actually that's a good way to learn because then by the end of it all these crazy combinations, but at the start you're not overwhelmed because I hate games where it's like you can do all of this, and it's okay because eventually you'll get to learn it. But this is much nicer because I read this and I go, oh, I like the sound of that. I learn it and I remember what the code is. It's like, and then it means that by now when I'm fighting enemies, I'm like, you know what? He's near a ledge. I'll jump and I'll web kick him off, right?
That's so satisfying.
And then I'll zip back and there's a grenade. I'll like fling that at them, and then it's like, you know what? I'll web this guy up. I'll take his gun, whack him all, throw it at him. Oh, is it like web bomb him? Then I'll hit all his friends with himself, like.
My first impression of like the combat of the game, like they take you through a very tutorialized fight sequence, and it was like, okay, here's a guy with a shield. You have to punch him and then dodge underneath him. And I just remember thinking, I'm not going to remember to do that every time I encounter a guy with a shield. This game's going to be a problem. But then by the end of not even by the end of the game, where I am now, like 45 to 50% ish.
You just
through,
know it, right? Like, that's how I deal with the shield enemies.
Also, but like my abilities have enhanced in so many other ways that I could electric web him, I could throw a web bomb at him, I could steal his shield and throw it back, I can get a grenade when they throw it at me and throw it at him. I've just unlocked Bunker Buster, which means if I do that, hold square web kick,
it will kick shields.
It'll kick shields away.
Air combat's so sweet as well. Like the guns are a good mix, so it's like you can prioritize the guns if you want them out of there, disarm them, whatever, or just get used to dodging. And then especially when you get that bit where you like elongate the time, you
slow down time.
Button, you're just like, oh my god, it's so sweet. Like this is like, it feels like everything in the game is just designed to be really fun and non-restrictive. I just don't feel like I'm like limited in any way.
So we were sort of talking about criticisms and then went back into praising the game. But this is a very minor thing, but for me, like one of the things that I like in the old Spider-Man games, a move that you could do and can't do in this, is the constant stream of web, where you just web a guy up. Like now it's sort of rapid fire shooters.
It's shots, isn't it?
And I sort of wish you had more of a choice, like to be able to just stand there and go, watch them struggle a bit. I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
It's annoying. It's one of those things that I didn't miss until you told me about it. But I think because of this one, they've definitely gone for like, because you're improving the gadgets, right? Yes, you could just do like, you could have a constant bar that goes down, but I think they've made it very clear. It's like if you want to on the screen, you know how many web shots you have, right? And you can increase that by 3, like with the upgrades. Some of the gadgets are really fun as well. Web bomb is just so satisfying. Like you just see a big crowd of people, web bomb them. Like some get stuck to the wall, getting stuck, like sticking them to the wall.
Oh, man, it's so good.
I love how dynamic it is as well. It's like you can web them up, but if you kick them into the wall when they're webbed, they'll get stuck. It's really nice. Also, bonus feature, like the car chase scenes where like they get out of the car and then the doors become things you can fling. I webbed a guy to a door, and then like you can then rip the door off and fling him and the door around. It's pretty comical.
That must have been a bug, right?
It was definitely like it was just a thing of like they made it so that if they get webbed to a vertical surface, they'll stick. And then it just so happened the door also moves. I was super impressed with the engine though, that like he just didn't stay floating. He actually stuck to the door when I flung the door around. I was pretty happy with that.
Another sort of criticism that I have, and maybe this gets rectified later on, but in Spider-Man 2, the movie, the game, you had sort of 3 types of missions. You had like the story missions,
and
then you had sort of like, so they would be, I don't know, green, and then you'd have like yellow, which was like there'd be criminals or heists or things going on, and then you'd have purple, which would be these very little, like, catch the balloon for the child, a guy snatching a purse, and having those like different levels of random crime. It was a bit tedious when stuff would constantly be happening and you'd have to listen to children shout, but it did make the city sort of feel alive and like this dynamic thing of events just happen and you have to deal with it. And I feel like a certain aspect of that is gone now, because I've done like all of the demon crimes and thug crimes.
I was
in the
actually
area.
kind of sad to. So it's weird because I usually like that. So Far Cry, what I really liked was once you did an outpost, you'd have cleared the enemies from that area. I like the idea you could get rid of the, because it's quite oppressive. Like if you're trying to get from point A to B, it's annoying being interrupted by enemies. So I liked, like in Far Cry, I really enjoyed clearing up the map. It was like there was like a battlefront, right? You know, it's like, this is my safe zone. And then this is like the once I go past this line, I'm going to start encountering enemies, and like it felt like I was making progress that way. In this game, I'm quite sad though, because it feels like it's a city, right? You know, it's a big city. Crime just shouldn't go away because I've solved 5 crimes, right?
Especially when the demons are still, and the thugs and stuff are still a problem.
Especially like, fine, have it where it's like complete 5 to tick that off. You've done it, right? Or just have an ability for me to reset it, so I can just say, you know what, I'd like to turn crime back on.
I think that they probably, because you can still have these little things happen if you're standing around in a crowd. Occasionally people will draw guns on you and say, Wilson Fisk sends his regards. But those things are only ever like one guy. And to which every time I do it, I love it, because like the music will suddenly change, and I'll just go to my gadget menu, I'll get my impact web out, this guy will run, I go, he's just on a wall. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just keep stealing his gun from him and watch him like pick it back up and go, nope.
But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I was kind of sad to find, because
the whole point of the game is that you're trying to you're in a constant war against crime.
Yes.
And you're right. You'll hit the nail on the head exactly when you say that the crime just shouldn't go away because you've done an arbitrary number.
I don't have a problem with it. Like, I like the fact there's stuff to do and there's like a completion to it. It just kind of felt like the crime. I just assumed the crime wasn't one of them, and then when I checked the map and realised it was like 3 out of 5, I was like, oh, well, until I get to 5, it goes away.
This is no more crime.
Oh, that's sad. I like, because it was completely ignorable. It wasn't the sort of oppression. Like, the reason I don't like it in Far Cry is like you have to go everywhere on foot or driving, and like like Far Cry 2 was the worst. That game is so.
I mean, just generally, it was the worst.
It was just the worst
Of all 3.
No, I liked a lot of it. I liked the atmosphere and the setting.
There's 4 Far Cry games.
And the weapons.
There's 5 Far Cry games. What am I talking about?
But the how oppressive it was, such a nightmare. Like, when you actually just wanted to relax and enjoy a scenery, there'd just be some gunfire. Oh, look, everything's on fire now. Like, god damn it, I was trying to take a screenshot. Like, but in this game, it's completely ignorable. You'll get a little dispatch like notification. You're like, what? I'm on my way to somewhere else right now. I'm web swinging. I don't care about crime.
No way.
What?
No way do you do that.
Oh, ignore the crime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
What do you mean?
Oh mate, that's the thing. Like, you have to go. That's the thing about Spider-Man, is that he's constantly going, I just want to do this thing, and then crime happens. He's like, fucking.
Do you know what? Do you know what this annoyed me? It broke my immersion, because like I'm a selfish Spider-Man. I'm Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in this game, right? So when I'm in the open world and there's a crime and I'm trying to take a picture of something, I'm like, crime can wait, right? Right, and then it goes to a cutscene.
My chocolate milk is more important.
Yeah, it goes to a cutscene, and like, you know, we're getting someone with MJ. I'm like, this is great, and then he leaves. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like,
go back and fill her with your web.
For God's sake. But anyway, like, yes, I am Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in this game. Which I noticed they didn't put his suit in it, did they?
No. Mysteriously absent.
Yeah. Stark suit, great.
Him and the Fantastic Four, just not
gone,
mentioned.
Yeah. It's interesting though, the lack of like Fox licensed things. It's interesting because they do call it Marvel. This is Marvel's Spider-Man, and it's very interesting that it's like, because it's not. It's weird. It's like, it's not MCU because it's clearly not Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It's a very comic book world.
All of the characters from the Spider-Man mythos that were absent from them are
exactly
in this
like
game.
The Vulture's like completely different in this. So it's definitely
Harry Osborn is a thing. MJ's white. Like, it's a completely separate entity.
Yeah,
and like where the characters are different as well.
Yeah,
like,
but like design for Avengers Tower, like it's got the modern Avengers A on it.
It leans on it very heavily.
The Sanctorum, like, but I think that's like a good way to summarize this game though. Is it's like it just cherry picks from different Spider. It's like it's an amalgamation and a little bit of development on Spider-Man.
Well, interestingly, like the things that they are using are the things that Marvel own because, as I say, it's the strange Sanctorium.
Yeah.
The Avengers Tower, obviously, and then if you go to like Harlem, there's Luke Cage stuff there. Alias investigations from Jessica Jones, like all of those defenders,
and the attorney, like the Daredevil's cards you find. So yeah, you're right. So I think licensing, it's all their licensed stuff they use. And you made the point about Lego, but Lego, it can use any. They can, when they're making their Lego games, they can use anything that Lego has licensed to make toys with, which is like everything under the sun. So that's why they can do like Lego Dimensions, where you've got Portal, the Lego Movie, Gandalf. You can have.
Okay, right.
They can mash it together. Whereas the Insomniac making this game has licensed it from. Marvel has licensed out what they've got a hold of. Lego already does it for their physical toys, so they can make games of it, right?
And movies, because those Lego movies like Lego Batman and stuff, like I don't know if you've seen the Lego Batman movie, but like Sauron and all sorts
But that's because they already have the licenses because of the toys.
Yeah, so it's
whereas these guys don't. So it's like not only do they not care to mention Fantastic Four, but I don't know if they can. Like it's extra effort they need to go to, and it's not a brand they particularly care about probably right now.
No, I mean, it's probably not in Marvel's interest to promote it, but from my perspective, it's like you have New York as the selling point, Marvel's New York, and to me, like, even in Spider-Man 2 and that Spider-Man PlayStation 1 game, the Fantastic Four building was there, like, you could swing to it, and Stan Lee, the narrator, would be like, the Fantastic Four aren't here right now.
I remember that. Well, yeah, because the Human Torch was in it, wasn't he?
So,
that's where I first saw the Human Torch, and I was like, he's cool.
Well, the great thing about that Spider-Man game was that it was my introduction to a lot of characters in the Marvel universe. Like Daredevil was in it, Punisher was in it.
That was a really big introduction. Actually,
him and Captain America are playing cards at the end in the post-credit scene.
Yeah, it was really good. But that was because Marvel hadn't really entered the films area yet, and it's quite interesting actually because that's quite rare. Like, it's so associated with films now, but Spider-Man entered the gaming scene before it really went mainstream.
And even like
I guess he had the animated show.
Yeah, and I mean even in the movie, the Sam Raimi movie adaptations, like they expanded those games and put characters into them from the Spider-Man mythos that weren't in the movies. Like there was a Mysterio level, Black Cat was around.
Yeah.
So
I tell you what I remembered about. Did you the first Spider-Man movie, the game?
Where you could play as the Green Goblin. Yeah.
Man, I loved that. And I watched the video because I was like, I was watching the Green Goblin event. I was like, you know what? I remember throwing pumpkin bombs like as a character. Like, what was that? I was like, was that the first one? And I went back and watched it, and I had this massive nostalgia rush because you start as it, but they'd actually rewritten bits of it. So because he was like, my father's upset, and he's like, you play as Harry as Green Goblin. The timelines in this are super weird because he's been Spider-Man for go back to the current game. Just jog my memory. He's been Spider-Man for so long because he's already put away like Rhino, Fisk, like Vulture. Like at the end of his career, but he's working for Doc Ock. Who hasn't turned evil yet. Like he's just like straight up Dr. Octavius.
And I love the first scene when he appears and he straps himself into the thing. And you're like, here we go, and it's like, just nothing happens. He just doesn't turn evil. And I was like, this is great because now he can be around. He can be a character development.
If I had never seen, like, if this was my first time playing Spider-Man, it would blow my mind. Like when it happened, like because it's gonna happen, right?
Totally.
Like we know
he's already his research is in jeopardy.
He's research is in jeopardy. He's like already thinking about it as more than just prosthetics. Like he's already getting there.
I was talking to my friend about it, and he said a great way he put it is that in his game, Doc Ock hasn't turned evil yet, but he is a mad scientist.
Yeah.
And it's like that's where he turns into Doc Ock.
And so I really like that. Like I really like, but it's weird though because it's like and this is what it's just its own game. With this, like, it's playing off of, it's able to pick what it wants from all the things. So, because obviously when they were making it, they liked that Doc Ock art, and they saw, and that's what it does really well actually. Relationships in this game are amazing. Like, you've got such good relationships with like so many different people, and they do crossover. So it's like you and Doc Ock, right? There's that side of the game. Quite like it. Whenever I go into the lab, I've got a little mini game to complete, which I don't mind. Like, the doing the towers was a bit annoying. Like, it wasn't a very good mini game where you line up the signal.
Oh yeah.
I was like, that's annoying.
I mean, it wasn't really that much of a mini game though. It was just like a quick little.
Yeah, it's just a bit. I was just a bit like, this isn't really adding anything. Could just be a button press. But I do like the circuit ones and the spectrograph ones. They match the lines. Yeah, they get quite challenging later.
I mean, I've had enough of the connect the circuit and make it all run through.
Especially when they I didn't mind it when you could go to the lab and choose the time to sit down and do those puzzles, because it's good pacing, right? I can come back to the lab and I can finish some puzzles off. But
in the story, locked you out of doing them, because in the early game, before I had unlocked the Harry Osborn towers, which I want to get onto in a second, but I was like, okay, I need research to build these suits. How do I get research tokens? I was like, I know, I'll go to my lab and do research. And you can't but then you're blocked out of doing it.
It's annoying because he picks up a tablet and it's like, you think you'd be able to access that from the start menu.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, just it's like the cloud's not a thing in this game. Also, the amount of pseudoscience in this game is just insane. Because he's all like, "Oh, that would be a great neural interface." Or it's kind of it's kind of true, but then but it just strikes me that you're trying to explain something that doesn't need explaining, right?
Well, so when I first bought this game, I was installing it and I was like, okay, I've got 2 to 3 hours to kill while it's installing. I'll just watch Spider-Man.
Do you know what really annoyed me though? There's 44 gigs to put on disc. I'm like, why have I bought a CD? Just
should have just done what I did.
Yeah.
And not bothered. And that's why I don't really buy disc games anymore, because it's going to take.
It's cheaper though.
It's true. Yeah.
That's annoying as well. I buy a physical product and I pay more, pay less.
So the thing is, I was like, okay, I've got 2 hours to kill while this installs. Yeah. I'll watch Spider-Man 2, which was a great decision because by the end of that, I just wanted to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But there's the scene where him and Doc Ock, in that movie, are talking about science, and it's like he's looking at his research. Peter's looking at Doc Ock's research, and he says something like, "Oh, it's the harmonic resonance. Yeah, if we increase that and do this with the waves," and it's like, "Oh, we could solve the energy crisis." And I was like, "Wow, it was that simple, was it?"
Yeah. And in this this game is full of it.
And then, the next scene is them having dinner, and he says, "Do you think your research could work, or do you think there's a chance it could go wrong?" And Doc Ock says, "Peter, what have we spent the last hour and a half talking about?" It's just very convenient that. How often do you refer to a conversation that you've just had with someone?
Yeah. That's great. That is an example of great writing.
But there's always been that level of sort of cheesiness to the sort of,
and it totally fits within it. It's not
inappropriate.
It just made me chuckle, right? And it didn't get in the way. It's not midichlorians. It's just he'll drop a name of a chemical and give a quick line about what that might be used for, and you're like, oh, you know what? I guess he's a scientist. He might mutter that to himself. But I know what you mean by kind of the reason So the puzzles are good, and especially when you can choose when to do them. What's kind of annoying is where, I don't know if you've come across some of the crime yet, where you got to stop a bomb in the city.
No.
Okay. Sounds
fun.
Well, so some of the crimes, wait, have you unlocked demon crimes yet?
Yeah, I think I've just unlocked the demon hideouts.
So some of the crimes.
But I've already cleared out all of the demon crimes.
Oh.
So maybe I just RNG. Maybe the RNG just didn't give me any bombs.
Because I think that because it is just random, isn't it? So some of or maybe you have to get past a certain story mission, and maybe you complete. Yeah, maybe. But anyway, it's all right. So basically, there are some crimes around the city where what you do is there'll be a bomb squad, and unlike most crimes, where you just walk up to it and it starts. You have to go up to a bomb squad guy. He explains what's happening. You go up, you defeat the guys, disarm the primary bomb. And then you go and have to quickly disarm all the other bombs before the timer runs out, unless it goes off in the building. But the primary bomb disarm is one of those mini games. So it's you get a challenge of to do it in 3 minutes, and you're there, and it's like a puzzle. It breaks the flow. It's a bit annoying. That's where I haven't liked it implemented. But that's actually an interesting thing as well. I really like how every little challenge, no matter how small, combat wise, has some bonus tasks. So, we're talking about many ways to approach a situation. I love it when a game gives you a little challenge. So it's you'd be doing a crime and be knock 3 people off a building. I'm like, yes, sir. I will be doing that.
Use thrown at. I had one where it was disarm 3 enemies.
Yeah.
But the notification had disappeared off screen because the battle had gone on for so long, and I had one guy left, and I was like, oh crap, I don't know what I need to do to get that second challenge. I can't remember what it was. I was like, I'll just disarm him and
Is this where I tell you that if you scan it comes up? Okay.
So I disarmed him, just coincidentally, and it was like disarm 3 enemies, 1 out of 3. Nice. And I was like, okay, wait for him to pick up his gun, whip it back, 2, 3, and then just punch him once, and the fight was over. Nice. So I was like, if I had not remembered to do that one punch later, like that would have messed up
ended the whole thing. Yeah.
Is there anything about? I wanted to ask because I kind of wanted to talk about some of the Harry Osborn stuff. But is there anything about the story or the way that the characters are presented that you kind of don't like, or you wish had been presented a little bit differently?
No. Not really. I'm very much like I take it as it comes. Like I'm enjoying this for the experience it is. Like on the timeline subject, I just like another weird one is Harry, obviously. So Norman is the mayor, all right. So obviously he's like super late in his like crime fighting career. And he's put away a bunch of villains, but evidently Green Goblin's not showed his face, and Doc Ock hasn't showed his face.
Yeah, rather than becoming the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn became Donald Trump.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah,
totally.
But, well, I don't know. Fisk, like, it's so funny. I don't know if you know New York, but Fisk Tower is where Trump Tower is in New York. Right. Okay. So just.
I figured that the whole having your name on the thing was a reference.
Big gold, like,
was a reference to Trump, but there were people wearing the Norman Osborn caps and stuff, and the fact that he's become like a political villain.
You're right. Yeah. So it's weird. Fisk and Norman represent Trump collectively. Fisk is like apprentice Trump. and then Norman is like
MAGA Trump.
Yeah.
It's different versions.
EX Trump.
It's like how you have Giant Man, Ant-Man, and different versions.
Exactly. Just same guy. Yeah.
But in terms of Harry Osborn, like one of the things about Peter and Harry's friendship that I really like, and this is more like going back to the Raimi universe, is that Harry Osborn is an idiot.
Yeah.
And Peter Parker is really intelligent.
Yeah.
So, but Harry Osborn is like socially confident and gets a bit further with MJ.
They complement each other. So it's like, Harry is like, Harry does looked after Peter as their friend, but then also he's
they are different, but you understand their friendship.
And this is really intelligent.
Yeah, he's just another genius scientist, and considering that it's like, well, you've got Peter Parker who's doing that, and you've got like, why wouldn't he if he knew? And Harry Osborn is like a nice guy. He is a environmentally friendly like guy who's trying to do philanthropic things. The way that he becomes a Green Goblin is by going green, is by cleaning up the environment.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense why Peter Parker wouldn't tell him, and sort of, do you know what I mean? Like there'd be something to gain from Harry Osborn knowing that. I didn't expect Harry Osborn to appear in the story initially because of how many hours were going through without him being mentioned or alluded to, and then all of a sudden
the research stations, right?
The research stations appear, and
then all the time he's like, "Oh, I wish Harry was here."
Yeah,
it's a very weird thing because they're alluding to something going on with Harry, and I'm still. It's kind of nice having this discussion before either of us have finished it because there's still a lot of questions I have. It's like,
who's the guy on the phone?
Well, does this one end with like, because you've got like a main villain of this game, right? Like, wish I hadn't seen the trailer. It's like ruined that like straight up.
Okay, I don't legitimately know, so I was trying to avoid trailers for everything. Then what they showed at E3 was pretty much all I knew about this game going in.
Yeah, but showing at E3 would have done it as well.
Okay, then I just don't remember.
Oh, okay. Like for you at the moment, who's the villain?
Norman Osborn and Doc Ock. Electro might be in there.
Like
Rhino might be in there. But,
okay.
But I again like the.
Okay.
That's
oh, good for, you know what? Good for you. Enjoy the game.
Okay, cool.
For me, I was like, God damn it, this trailer is like bugging it up. So just don't watch any trailers and I'll shut up. Well, no, but what I was gonna say is like, it's fun because I don't know where, like, we know that like Doc Ock becomes that, and we know at some point Norman becomes Green Goblin. Something's going on with Harry because he's out of town and he's not answering phone calls.
Yeah.
So it's like, in this universe, is he going on his Green Goblin journey? Like, has he gone off to do... Because it's also got a bit of that universe where, like...
Or is he so, like, pissed off at Norman that he's just like, I'm going to destroy the city and destroy you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like... So it's one of those things where it's like... So something's going on with Harry, and I wonder whether we're going to see a Green Goblin from him. Something's going on with Doc Ock. Will we see that by the end of the game? Because there's a good chance that, like, Doc Ock might just happen at the end. Like, you might finish the game and it ends on Doc turning, and that's the sequel. Like
because then they can do Spider-Man 2, which was Doc Ock again. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes it, because
they've got room to build a good franchise.
As you know, like the demons are like the main threat right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like this gang showing up, and you're like, what the hell?
J. Jonah Jameson is a fantastic character. When I was rewatching the Spider-Man Raimi movies,
man, J.K. Simmons
absolutely nails it. So throughout Spider-Man 2, he's constantly writing articles about how evil Spider-Man is and blah blah blah. Spider-Man gives up, and he's celebrating, going, the power of the press.
Yeah.
And then like the next thing you see of Spider-Man quits, Peter Parker's enjoying his life. He walks past the newsstand, and the Daily Bugle says, "Crime up 75%. Where are you now, Spider-Man?"
Yeah.
It's like, and then
like JJ, he's actually misses him, and he's got his suit mounted on the wall, and then like he nicks the suit back to do it, and he's like, he stole my suit.
Like, he's talking about Mary Jane is engaged to his son and has been kidnapped by Doc Ock, and he's like, if only Spider-Man was around, he would have been able to stop him.
Yeah.
And he's like on the verge of complimenting him. He's like, he was, and then you hear,
a thief,
a menace, and it's like, there's sort of that moment of he's really angry, but it's like, we're back on. Like, and this game, the podcasting, have him as a radio show thing, is a brilliant way to have that character be relevant without. Well, if he was couldn't come across through print.
No,
right?
If he was the director of the Bugle, like, especially seeing as he's left the Bugle now, like Peter Parker, this is long ago. You couldn't have him interacting, and also it's very modern. Like, it's interesting. This game has really like gone up with the time. So a lot of like the quests are quite modernized, like, especially the research stations. They play on a lot. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, like re-angling satellites and aiming. It's nonsense, but it's very aware of like modern technology.
Have you done the side mission with the QR codes?
No, so actually I haven't done that. I've only done the PI side mission.
Right. Interestingly, if you scan those QR codes in real life, they take you to Insomniac's website.
I like that. That's really cool. Like, but that's what they feel like. This game, they're very self-aware. But what I like about, like, everyone has a podcast nowadays, and of course,
just let anyone in.
Like Jay Jameson, like, of course he would have a podcast. Like, he is a loud voice, and
of course it would be this sort of right-wing Alex Jones.
Infowars, like that's what I like about it, because it does.
I like that one thing of like how far we've come is that I used to reference Alex Jones all the time on this show, and you had no idea.
No, well, I mean, this sort of stuff gets out eventually, doesn't it? But
I was there before it went mainstream.
Yeah,
not even though like it was mainstream then.
It was, yeah.
But yeah, sorry. So J.J. Jonah Jameson, like a great way of having.
He feels like it feels like mechanically it works. Like, there's a reason why we're seeing him.
You must have had a lot of instances where it was like Spider-Man was in the area and he didn't care and didn't help us because he responds to you like doing stuff, and there's like he'll call you out if you let a crime go or something.
But then if you get involved with a crime, you'll cause some other problem, or like he was sniffing around water vents, and like he's like, no doubt he's like, he causes the crimes he solves. People, wake up.
What else does he do that a spider does?
Yeah, I love like people will constantly call in. And he's like,
that's not what I'm saying, you know.
He's like, yeah, no, this is what he's like. He's like, you're clearly stressed, and like his anger as well, like trying to anger management. He's like, you know what, fire, you're fired. He's like, you know what, you're hired, and then fire yourself again. Like, it's just really good. Did you hear about the marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, so for those who don't know, this guy, like back in May, like 5 months before the game came out, tweeted asking if you would put, Maddie, will you marry me? In the game, and they went, yes, can you wait till September? It was in the game, people found it, and he made a video response like, yeah, she left me for my brother. I was just like, oh, like, I mean, I kind of predict, like, when I saw the headline, I was like, the twist is going to be that she dumped him.
Totally.
For the brother, I was like, whoa, that's harsh.
That's the thing that you clickbait. Like.
And then, good on Insomniac, they got straight back to him and was like, do you want us to fix it in a patch? And everyone was like, yeah.
But then I saw on Reddit, someone else was like, my girlfriend's name's Maddie, I wanted to propose to her, so I'm using this to do it. And I was like, that's nice, that's almost redemption. Have you seen the thing, that article you sent me, the satire one, where they were complaining about the simulator? Did you see the article which I think that's a response to?
No.
So I can't remember the name of the publication, it wasn't a big one or a reputable one, but what they did was they basically wrote an article. Every time anything comes out, someone has to find the social justice angle to attack it. The angle that they
because unfortunately there's a market for that.
Yeah,
like crazy. Right?
There's an outrage economy now. and I'm feeding into it, but I'm not giving the name because I can't remember it, so that means I win. They said that this game sucks, or I have a hard time enjoying this game because they turned Spider-Man into a cop. And they talked about the fact that, like...
Oh, I saw people talking about this. Like, because I was searching for the marriage thing, and, like, an article that popped up was, like, a response to that article. And it's like, this game doesn't glorify cops. Like, that's what that article was about.
Well, the thing that the original article was saying was that, like, in real life, the NYPD are this, like, overbearing fascist organisation, and to glorify them in this game is to do a, political disservice and blah, blah, blah. And, like... The thing that, they made a lot of good points about understanding the core of the Spider-Man character, about how he is one of the city and how he is one of the oppressed people fighting back against, bad actions. And but then they just undermined it by saying, and when Spider-Man assists the cops with their dystopian tower connecting thing, it's like, well, that's just a mechanic for
opening the map.
It's nothing to get like angry at. And then also a few hours into the story, when the real fascist thing shows up and you have private military companies and stuff, Spider-Man is totally against that.
Yeah, he's completely he's like, the friend of my... Yeah, like, the enemy of... Mate.
The enemy?
The enemy of my enemy is also my enemy. No, what? No. The enemy of my enemy are my friends. Are they? Like, he kind of... It's like he's questioning it the whole time. Like, he, yeah, exactly. Like, in this, the NYPD are this, like, poster child, like, because... I think movies often portray them as like the heroes, and it's a very American thing, and especially with like 9/11,
another thing people were saying was this article came out a day before 9/11. It's like, is it
trashing the cops?
Is it the time really?
Yeah, and so this is that thing where it's like, what, like if the game wants to portray them as the heroes, like the bad people in all organisations, that is a problem, but it's just not a problem this game wanted to tackle. And you know what? It does in some way, like the private military coming in, and they represent the overbearing force of the government. Yeah. Norman just gets these people in. And
according to the narrative presented in that article, Spider-Man is just standing there posing with all of the PMCs.
But you know what? He actually also has one contact in the police. Like, he doesn't work for the police. So, like, she is risking her job. Like, she'd be fired. It addresses that. She'd be fired.
He's not helping, and also he's not helping the police. No. He's helping the citizens.
No, exactly.
The police are a means to do that.
And also, he's like, you know what, like, I'm not going to kill this, but I'm going to get him arrested, like, through justice. Like, he brings people to justice, and he needs the police to do that, but he doesn't rely on the police, or he doesn't take orders from the police.
Of course, no.
He gives them the tips.
And it's also like very amusing if you look at how the police are presented in this game.
Yeah,
it's like everything that social justice warriors say they want. Like the two main characters that you interact with in the police are Yuri Watanabe, who is Asian, and then Miles's dad.
Yeah.
Anderson Davis, Officer Davis.
Yeah, not Miles is the surname.
But so you have Asian and black representation. Yeah. But when this,
and they're very competent, they're like they're not stereotypical in any way. They're not straight up like.
And in this world, they are what the police should be. Like,
exactly.
they're not punching black kids and dropping joints on them and saying, they're criminals, lock them up.
And why should Spider-Man tackle that? Do you know what I mean? Like,
they're responding to in this the context of this universe, they're responding to Wilson Fisk and the demons, who are objectively bad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's just the definition of political nitpicking.
Oh yeah,
to have a problem.
But they just sell their articles using that.
Yeah, we said it right at the start. It's just the outrage economy.
Yeah, definitely.
Something I like about this game that's completely separate from all of that is that when Peter Parker has dialogue with people, if you're standing still, he talks like this, and if you're sprinting or swinging or whatever, he'll sort of sound a bit more out of breath. And I was like, did they just record
like two versions of
things of everything? Like, that's amazing.
It's really good. Like, the voice actors are fantastic. Like, they're really, really on point. And that's what I mean just by, I think every area of this game just feels really polished. Like, I think there's a few frustrations here and there, but like as a whole, it's just a really solid experience. Like, whether you want to just go swing around the city, or like, you know what, and like the story is really nice. Like what's saying about the relationships, I like the number of relationships you have with different people. So there's lots of different, I like
that restaurant owner said, it's good to see those two back together again.
Yeah, little Stanley.
I mean, they couldn't not do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got to get him in stuff while he's still around, right?
And yeah, like that's the thing. Like
that was a little bit meta as well. Like I kind of like that as well. Like it's quite self-aware. I think it
respects the legacy of the character.
It leans on the past a lot without trying to recreate the magic of it, which I like. It's like it's its own entity. Like as we've said, it's the timelines are all weird. It's definitely not trying to be a sequel to anything, but because you got like Doc Ock lasting this long in that universe without being corrupted. But then you've got like loads of nice little nods to like it's done nods to the games, it's done nods to the movie, like like mistakes they've made. Like it's I don't know. It just feels like a Spider-Man game for Spider-Man fans.
It feels like they did a really good amalgam of events and references from other things to bring into this. So it feels like it's building on top of the foundation that the character already has.
And then mechanically, it's like it's got enough stuff to like whatever you want to do in that game. It's fun. So it's like I like the story. If I accidentally land on a story mission, which I've done a few times, I'm not sad about it. I'm not like, oh, for God's sake, quit.
Yeah.
Like I'll just play the story mission because it's fun. And then side missions are good, collectibles are good. The core mechanics of swinging are good. The combat's really fun. The characters are great. Like like everyone feels like they have sort of a character development going through the film. I mean, Aunt May's probably like the most solid. In terms of she doesn't really move in terms of character. Like Peter's going on like another journey. Like with MJ, it's like a new sort of territory for them. Again, like you've got Miles coming into it. You've got the police officer, like Spider Cop, which is hilarious.
I was going to say, like, how can you write a whole article about Spider-Man
without addressing Spider Cop,
without referencing Spider Cop? Like, you just haven't. The very clear thing about the person writing that article is they just hadn't played that much of the game.
Played the game. Yeah.
So where I would sort of like to sort of put my flag in the mast of this game.
Yeah, that was my summary. You go with your closing statement.
The train scene in Spider-Man 2 and the boat scene in Spider-Man Homecoming are like these archetypical Spider-Man moments. They both end in Spider-Man with his arms stretched outwards in Christ poses, and they perfectly encapsulate what people would like about the character. And I think the way to summarize that would be a small young guy versus some much greater force. Yeah. And he has to physically exert himself to try and save other people, and that sacrifice of his own strength and his own life almost. And to me, that's like the essence of the character. If you want to make a great Spider-Man thing, then you have to capture that essence. Yeah. The Amazing Spider-Man didn't really have moments like that, and that's why it sucks.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 doesn't really have moments like that, and that's why it sucks.
Yeah.
It would have been very easy for them to write and make a game that was just, hey, Spider-Man can web people up and he can punch people, and isn't that fun? But it feels like the story, like one of the first things you do as you go through that Fisk Tower, like, okay, you punch a lot of people, you beat them up, but you also save people, you do quick time events to lift rubble and help people escape. And to me, like, that's the helicopter sequence to me was that moment of a guy up against something much greater than him.
So when you're mashing that square button to like pull the tail up, like to stop it, I failed that.
Oh really?
Yeah, like at one point, like I think it was the bit where like it was literally the end of it, where you do the two webs to the buildings, and then trying to stop it going down. It crushed people because I was too late on the button presses. So I know what that feels like. But yeah,
you really are Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
I am, man. I am, yeah.
Failing upwards.
Yeah. No, and you're exactly right. Like it's a great testament to the game where like those moments can feel just as good as like when defeating the villain, when saving people feels just as rewarding as like defeating the villain. It's like you've got a good balance. Like you've got a good character there. Like he feels like how you expect Spider-Man to feel. Like he's he is just that hero. He like you say, like when he hears the siren, he's off. Yeah. Like it's such a it's just a solid character. You know how he's going to react in those situations.
One of the early so that first part of the game where you're fighting the thugs in Fisk Tower, I felt very like I had a thing of like it's very difficult for me to stick to walls. Like I hadn't figured out yet that what you have to do is R2 wall run, and then you can sort of wall crawl.
Yeah.
You can't just jump out a wall and stick to it like you used to be able to. So I was like struggling with that and finding it really awkward, and I was like, it should be easy for you to walk on walls and stick to them. That's Spider-Man's whole thing.
So like R2's like the parkour button, right?
Yeah, and I was really worried that the sort of mechanical freedom that the old games had wouldn't be there in what would be there would be this replaced sort of linear, scripted, modern style of game. And while it does have a lot of those elements going on, I feel like narratively and mechanically, a lot of things do capture that spirit that I referenced earlier with the train scenes and the overall essence of the character. This is like Marvel's Spider-Man. This is a definitive Spider-Man experience, and it's also one of those rare AAA games that comes around. There's maybe one every year or every 2 years where everyone's playing it. It's universally like so good,
adored. Tell you what, and like a lot of them lately have been Sony exclusives. It's like kind of mad.
Like God of War was probably like
Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, and now Spider-Man. Like 3 single-player games that have just smashed it. Like absolutely. That's a nice ending. I like it. He truly was Marvel's Spider-Man, and then it like plays the trailer like as an outro.
This might be the most consistent we've ever been on one topic.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I feel like we went on a good arc as well because we started with like the movies, the history of Spider-Man, and then tied it into. You know what? It's almost like we planned it, but we didn't.
We didn't at all.
We actually didn't plan it. I mean, this could just sound sarcastic, but we just genuinely didn't plan it.
Well, I definitely think we wouldn't have gone on to as many tirades about the media and news things.
Considering though that like we haven't done this in so long, and we actually haven't caught up in a while, that also makes it more impressive because it's not like we've just done this all the time. It's like this is the only thing we've got left to speak about, you know.
No, so. It's just it. You know, this podcast is the definitive podcast. This is why we did it.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming with us on this journey.
Nice to see you all.
To see you, nice.